up and sit down.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma. We are your, I don't know, I was going to have something cool to say there, but I don't.
You lost it?
I never had it to begin with. I was making it up as I go along. I was like, yeah, I was going to say friendly neighborhood something, but I don't know. We're not necessarily.
You don't have a trolley.
You
need a trolley.
Yeah. Anyways, as I was saying, welcome to Dope and Dharma. This is the Dharma Time Hour. He is the Dope Doctor, and I am the Dharma Guy. What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, right? So it's a little bit later than normal.
We did it on the right day, though.
We did, yes. If you're watching live, then you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch live. Right. And it is, yeah, it's evening time. We're usually afternooners, right? But you're
shiny as hell, though. Still bright outside.
Yeah. It is bright.
Evening, but it's still, still bright.
Right on. So, as I was saying, if you want to watch us live, it's on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. And if you are watching live, don't be shy. Make some comments, man. I think we've discussed trying to change the format just a little bit. So hopefully you guys
don't tell
watching.
them nothing.
No, I'm not telling what it is. I'm just saying stay tuned is what I'm saying.
Whatever.
Anyways,
you'll find out when I find out.
Yeah. So today's show, right? Today what we're talking about. So I think it was a couple weeks ago we were doing our show on I think it was the Making Compliments Normal one. I think that's when it was mentioned. But we talked about relationships, and I mentioned how it was transactional, and you made a point of saying, hey, write that down. Let's do a show on that. So today's show, wait for it, kids, if you haven't read the title yet, transactional relationships.
Yeah,
I think I don't know what comes to mind for most people when those words are said out loud.
Prostitution, probably.
Probably something nefarious or some debauchery of some sort.
Who knows?
Who knows? I don't know. If you're watching this, what was the first thing that came to your mind actually when you hear transactional relationship?
Yeah.
But
what came to your mind, Marissa? I see Marissa's on Facebook Live. What came to your mind?
Right on. And so I guess because my mind is a very logical, place to be, if you will.
Mr. Humble.
No, I'm not an emotional one, right? So I'm just all logical, and that's not a good thing, by the way. I get in trouble for that all the time.
Right. Is it like this? Wait, am I doing it right?
Basically, yes. When I hear transaction relationships, I think of like the logistics of a relationship, no matter what kind of relationship it is, romantic, friend, or coworker. It's reciprocal nature. You're getting something from somebody and you're giving them something, right? Needs are being met, kind of a thing. That's what I think of. But I don't think the average person thinks of that, right? So what are your thoughts on that? I know you have a statement you want to make, so I'm dying to hear.
It's not necessarily a statement. Yeah, maybe it is a statement. Look, what I want to say is, if you think that you're not in a transactional relationship, or relationships should not involve a transaction, you are sadly mistaken. That's the biggest point,
right? Well, and I would argue, based upon that statement, if you don't think that you're in a transactional relationship, whoever's in that relationship with you is probably kind of unhappy.
That's right. You're not getting their payoff. You're getting your payoff, apparently.
Exactly.
But what are you giving up? What are you
exactly? Well, and that's the thing, right? Is I do think that when people hear transactional relationships, I will say that the first thing that probably comes to mind is some form of money, like some form of currency, right? Like they probably take it very literal and think paying for something,
right?
And what I would say is transactional doesn't necessarily mean financial compensation, right? Like it could be multitude of things, and like for instance, there was a joke back in the day. And I guarantee you've heard this, and any dude over the age of probably 25 has heard it at some point as well. Okay. Like a lot of guys say that they wouldn't, do prostitution. I'm not going to pay for this, and they says if you don't think you're paying for it, man,
oh yeah, you pay.
Trust me, you're paying for it. You're actually just paying more, right?
Some of you paid half plus.
Yeah. Because everything's a transaction.
You should have paid half plus because it's probably because of you that you screwed it up in the first place.
Well, I don't even mean in divorce. I'm just talking about in general. Taking them out here, doing this, like you're paying for it, right? Like there's a lot of expectations that come.
But they are too. Women are paying too.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, I think that's what I think of transactions, right? Like if we're talking about in a relationship situation, excuse me, the transaction between my wife and I.
Yeah, what is it? What's the transaction?
Well, there's certain things that I expect.
Tell us, Jenny. She's not here. She's not listening.
I expect a certain amount of loyalty. I expect my emotional needs to be met. I expect connection. I expect these things that are going to fill my cup, if you will.
Your emotional needs?
Yeah.
Okay.
The things that I'm agreeing to get from her and only from her.
Okay.
Vice versa. I'm sure for me, she's expecting those same kinds of things. But I think that people forget about that sometimes, right? Like we're so self-centered sometimes as a species. We get so self-centered, and we think of, well, what am I getting out of this? And oftentimes when I hear people talk about that, you can stump them by just asking, well, what are you giving out of this? And you'll see like malfunction, like they can't think because they're so focused on what they're not getting. It's like, well, have you thought about what you're giving?
Or they're focused on only one thing that they're given.
Yeah, as if that's supposed to be the end all be all, right?
Right. Like, well, in other words, when I'm unhealthy, when I'm in a bad mood, which I am in a bad mood right now. That's my disclosure. I'm in a bad mood right now. We're not going to talk about it right now. It might come out. It might come out. There's no way. Wait, shit! It might come out right now. That mortgage company ain't getting away with what they're doing. I'm paying $800 more a month, people, for insurance because people decided to live by the ocean and get their houses flooded by hurricanes. Apparently, everybody. I got to pay $800 more a month in my mortgage, which is ridiculous.
For those of you who don't live in Florida, pretty much everybody in the state of Florida, our insurance has gone up for our homes drastically over the last couple of years.
I'm not happy.
No,
$400 last year, $800 this year. Is ridiculous. Anyway,
it's absurd.
$800 a month. A month.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Anyway, let's what was the question that you said?
We're talking about transactional relationships.
My transactional relationship with my insurance companies, I pay you. You're supposed to protect my house when it's damaged. I'm not supposed to pay for other people's houses that are damaged.
Yeah. Well, that would be an example of a transactional relationship, right? Like in theory, the transaction is monetary. You're paying them a certain amount of money. And what they're supposed to then give you is peace of mind, as well as the safety and security of knowing if something happens, then they're going to come in and pay for it. Now, we could argue that that's a one-sided transactional relationship because you're gonna give every single month, no matter what, and their security and peace of mind, can leave you wanting sometimes. Right?
Well, because every time you or someone else uses it, it goes up. So it's an insurance, but it's like, but don't use me, because if you or anybody that uses us, then we're gonna take it out on all y'all.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but then you're also not getting that on a monthly basis, right? Like you could be paying into it for years and years and years and get no tangible thing in return,
right?
Other than, like you said, the metaphorical peace of mind of knowing if something happens, I have insurance. But that is usually followed up with, but they're going to find a way of screwing me somehow. Like they're going to find a way of not wanting to pay for it. So we could argue that the reason why so many of us have a problem with insurance companies is that it's not really reciprocal, right? It's not a good transactional relationship for most of us.
Trinity, I've never gotten better sleep because I had insurance. That's not now. One time, I can't go back to any point in time that I've ever gone, you know what? I can sleep good tonight because I have insurance.
Yeah, I could argue peace of mind is overrated.
See, now different with relationships, other types of relationships, like these transactions that we have with our partners, right? Like you said that, would you say you get from Angel like emotional support?
Yeah, I mean, I have emotional needs. I have, fulfillment that I get from her, or loyalty, things of that nature.
Well, Dana and I might have a little bit more needs than that we expect from each other, and that should be done. And those should be communicated. Like if those don't match or fit, that's when people can make poor choices. Same thing with the emotional stuff, whether it be physical or emotional. If you choose to not give the transaction that your partner's wanting, That can be problematic.
Oh yeah.
And so you should communicate that. Now, unfortunately, we're not really good communicators as humans, right?
No. No.
We first of all, we all have a different language, which doesn't make sense,
No.
right? This, you hear about these people, these these therapists, and yes, I'm a counselor, so I could talk. See, one thing I could talk smack about is Mexicans because I'm Mexican, and men because I'm a man, Floridians because I'm in Florida, and married guys because I'm married, and so in this situation, there's these transactions that exist, right? And it's like I want certain things, and unfortunately, as a human, there's these things the therapists say, and again, I'm going to make fun of therapists a little bit because, oh, you have love languages. Yeah, you know what? I speak the English language, and when I say, you're pissing me off right now, or if she tells me, Louis, you're acting like a jerk right now, if I don't understand that language, how the hell am I going to understand your love language? I don't even understand your verbal language.
Right.
Because Dana's real clear what she's mad about, and this in the subtext. I can always read the subtext. Oh, you're feeling insecure right now. Oh, you're mad about something else, some other battle you lost before, so you're trying to win this one today. So we can have this conversation. It's not like I can't read that, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, but that's not your love language. Well, listen, what's my hate language though? Do you know my hate language? Because if you don't know my love language, then you definitely don't know my hate language. And if you don't know my love language and my hate language, what language do you understand? Because I've spoken real clear before to Dana, and I know she's using real clear words to me, but I hear something different than what she's saying. She's hearing something different than what I'm saying, and we're doing this.
Yeah.
Really? So back to transactions. Listen, I know that there's something every human wants from you, Trinity, if they're in a relationship with you of any type.
Sure.
And I know there's something they want from me if they're in a relationship with me of any type. There's interpersonal relationships and there's personal relationships. And it is for us to accept the relationship. So it's almost like if you choose to accept this position, this is what comes with it. Now, if you don't want to accept it, then the sooner you say so, say so. But the fact that you're in the relationship is because to some degree, you are getting something out of it. Now, it's your fault if you chose not to explain it all up front or to accept this person showed you from day one, they're not going to provide that. Yet you chose to stay in the relationship because you liked what you were getting to some degree, but there was this key component missing from the relationship that you thought, it'll come around. He'll grow into it. He'll one day give me that, or somehow I'm going to manipulate him or convince him that I need it. No, you're not. No, dude. Let me tell you something. Women, if you're dating a guy and he's a jerk today, he's going to be a jerk tomorrow. That doesn't change. That's very rare. Guys, if that woman's naggy today, she's going to be naggy tomorrow. That's not going to change. It's not all of a sudden they're going to. You know what? You're right. I really should stop. It doesn't happen. We stay jerks and we stay nags. It's kind of where we're at. Now, you either accept us for what we are. Like, what did I tell you early on when you go, hey, is there any wisdom I can have when you were getting married, right? You've been married how many years? What are you at? 7, 9?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. Do you know where you're at? What number
2015. So, what is this?
You want me to do the math, Trinity? I got to do the math.
You were asking me to do the math.
I've done enough math today. They want $800 more.
800 is what it is. I've been married for 800 years.
And no more math today, Trinity. No more math. So, all right. So 9 years, right? So or 8 years. In those 8 years, yeah. Now I'm doing math for you.
Exactly.
But in those 8 years, I remember you asking me, says, what is it? I said, just you got to love their crazy. I love my wife's crazy. She loves my crazy. You can't be afraid to argue. If you're afraid to just say what you got to say, and they're afraid to say it to you, then one day it's all going to come out anyway. Yeah. But it's going to come out when you least. It's like a flat tire. It's going to come out when you don't want it to happen. Because there's no gauge on, oh boy, you're getting closer. You're getting closer. There's no gauge on you're reaching that breaking point, But people tell you real clearly what bothers them, but we don't listen. We don't hear what they're saying. We hear the words, but we don't read all the subtitles. And everyone should speak with subtitles.
Right.
Where you can see, oh, they said that, but this is what they're saying real clear.
This is what they meant.
Right. And some of us add subtitles that don't even exist. Like, As a Spanish speaking person, I'll watch a show sometimes, and they'll put a subtitle and they're speaking Spanish, and I'll go, that's not what he said. Wait, how did they? That's not. He said it a little bit different than that, and that little difference that they said it
means a lot.
Changes the meaning. Changes the meaning. So whenever there's an interpreter, and guess what, people, we're all interpreters. We all think that we're expert interpreters. we're like that person doing this on the side.
I used to think I was an expert interpreter.
Those real entertaining people that speak for the deaf people watching and listening. They're the most entertaining people in the room, right? Yeah, you could be watching a press conference, but the person right next to the press conference, they're making faces, they're moving. Whatever that dude's saying, that's interpretation. Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we're always doing. We're always interpreting what the person's saying. And sometimes we are wrong.
Yeah.
We're wrong. And with the transaction part, not when we read it wrong, so then we spout off something reacting to something wrong, or just a fraction off. A fraction off. What do you think happens next? Then that one's a little bit more fraction off. And then it comes back at you. So now it's a little bit more off. By the time you go 20 or 30, 40 years in a relationship, guess what? That shit is so way off, Trinity, that you just have a man sitting in a chair and a woman talking to him, and he's like Archie Bunker in it.
Yeah.
Edith, what? You know what I mean? You get to an Archie Bunker position. And listen, if you're young and you don't know who Archie Bunker, Google it. You'll enjoy it. It's really, he might be a little canceled, but he's really entertaining.
Canceled,
Just a little canceled, but it's very entertaining stuff.
Yeah.
But that to me is how you get to real bad situations. When you continue to do your transactions poorly, not give the person what they want because you're only focused on what you want. Yet that person always told you what they were going to give you. You just somehow didn't believe it. And most people, when I say your picker's broke, that's what I'm talking about. If I've ever told you your picker's broke, it's because they showed you exactly who they were and you still believed in them. Cleveland Brown fans know this real well. Like, they've always sucked, and yet you continue.
They are who we thought they were.
Cleveland Browns are still Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I see.
Now I'm going to get all this hate mail from all the. You still have Ohio State. Enjoy your. That's why you like Ohio State.
The Browns is terrible.
That's why everybody in Cleveland like college ball more than pro ball.
Yeah,
that's why.
I see it a lot too, not just in like romantic relationships, but I also have seen it a lot in like worker-employee relationships from both sides, right? And that one obviously is a much more straightforward transaction. You want me to do these duties, and you're going to give me, currency in return.
Right.
Where the problem starts to come in, though, is when, I'll say from the employee side first, when the employee starts to expect the boss to be like their friend, right? Like when they're upset when they didn't get like a Christmas card or something, or when they're upset because they didn't show empathy about a personal relationship they had or whatever, which by all means, those are awesome things if they're present.
Right.
However, if you went into a job to get paid to do whatever task that you were asked to do, that's where your expectations have to start and stop, right? You can't get mad at a boss for not being your friend. You can't get mad at a boss for not living up to your friendly expectations. Like, they're not in a relationship with you. It's a very business relationship. You agreed to do these tasks to get money. Anything outside of that is a bonus. They don't owe you anything. They owe you the money per hour that they told they would give you, and that's it. Once again, is it nice? Sure, it's nice, but they don't have to. And I think a lot of people get resentful because they start to look at their boss as like their buddy or their friend or whatever. And when they're not behaving that way, they start to get resentful and angry and get mad at the boss for not being what they never agreed to be in the first place. But then on the flip side of that, I've also seen bosses too many times will hire an employee and give them a set of tasks to do and say, this is what I'm going to pay you. And then slowly the boss starts to ask them to do more. Right. It's like, there's more overhead, more little fires start to pop up as a business owner, and you've got to put those fires out, but you can't personally do it. So you have to delegate. Well, it's easy to delegate to somebody you're already paying, because in your mind, you're thinking, well, I'm already paying them. Go do this. Well, not so fast, right? Like, you didn't hire them to do all these extra little fires that you're trying to ask them to put out right now. You hired them for A, B, and C. Anything outside of A, B, and C, they're going to expect to be compensated. And that's where I think the transactional stuff starts to come in, at least in the coworker kind of, or boss employee kind of in a
Right.
situation. And then you have friends, right? And see, to me, friends is a very interesting transactional relationship, because it's not straightforward with every single friend, right? Like, I have some friends with different skill sets that I go to them for different things. Versus, like, for instance, you're one of the only. I'm trying to think. I think you're probably one of the only ones I know right off the top of my head, anyways, that's got like 30 years worth of marriage under their belt. I have a couple other
Damn,
friends of
great.
mine. I have a couple other friends that have got like probably 10, 12, 15, maybe. I don't know if I'm sure if I think hard enough, I could come up with somebody,
June
but
19th, buddy. June
right on.
19th.
Oh yeah, wow, it's coming up.
30 years.
So, uh, uh, so part of our transaction is I'm going to come to you for your thoughts on marriage. I'm going to listen more when you start to talk about how to maintain a marriage. That's just part of the transaction here. That's what I'm going to be getting from you, right?
Titanium chains, brother. Titanium chains.
Exactly. Keep them locked. So I wouldn't, but I wouldn't go to like one of my single friends and expect him to give me great marriage advice.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
not part of my transaction with them, right? Like, I have other friends who have other abilities. I have other friends who I have, different kinds of
Yeah.
fun with. Whatever.
Right.
Like, there's all these transactions that you get, and I think where the problem sometimes, like where these friendships start to turn into enemies and hate one another, is when they start expecting that friend to be different than the friend that they've shown themselves to be, right? Like if you have a friend that's not good with money, right, you should probably never loan that person money expecting to get it back.
Right.
If you know they're not good with money, they're terrible with money, they blow it on stupid things, whatever it might be. They come to you and ask for a couple $100, whatever that number is for you that you can do, but it's like gonna hurt a little bit. You do it thinking full well that they're going to come back, and when they don't, you get mad and angry at your friend. Well, you expected them to be what they weren't, right? Like, you knew ahead of time, so
Right.
it was up to you to say no. I'm not in a position where I can afford to give that away. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, right? And so that's what I mean by, like, that's where they start to turn into enemies sometimes, or friendships that who've been around for a while start to fade, as you start to expect them to be different, or expect a different
Yeah.
transaction than what you've been getting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then you're a jerk, and then you're like, "Oh, he has it, and he wouldn't. He's got plenty. What is it to him?" I mean, look, um, yeah, I agree with you. And let me see what Marissa's saying right here. Marissa's saying that she mentioned love languages to us on our last show. This is a good time. Yeah, thank you
I
for that.
like, but I don't like love languages, but go for it.
I like using them as a conversational
Yeah.
piece because
Uh,
first of all, they're true. Like they really are true. I may not like
yeah,
it, but we do interpret a lot of things differently, and affection and what our needs are different. Like in these transactions that we're talking about today, like there's something like Dana wants, right? In our transaction, she wants the security, she wants the strength, she wants the safety, she wants the financial freedom, she wants the ability to not be worrisome about day-to-day things that are financial in nature or safety in nature. Does that make sense? So money and
sure.
safety, those are two real important things. Now for
Well,
me, on the
and
other hand,
connection.
oh, definitely connect. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the
And
big overarching
right,
umbrella
right.
over all of it.
See, there you go. And that's why I get in trouble. See, Trinity, I put it at number 3, and then I screw up because she's like, all I really wanted was a hug, and it's like, I gave you money. You want a hug too?
Well, I think we're all looking
No,
for
I'm kidding.
connect.
I'm kidding. I'm
Like,
kidding.
we're all looking for the transaction. Like, we're all looking to receive
Yeah,
connection. I
right,
think we just have different definitions in how that
right.
looks.
Right. So all of it is connection, like you say, all of it, right?
Yeah,
So what I'm looking for is I like appreciation. I just want acknowledgement that I did what I did. I'm not Gandhi. I can't turn the other cheek like that. I can't just like do. You know, I'm not the. I must admit, I'm not the invisible a donor. If I give, I just want the acknowledgement. I gave, right? Okay, we're good.
sure.
Now I'm not talking about small things. I'm talking about relationship things. Like what I mean. So as long as you appreciate, what I'm doing, and I show you appreciation through providing that, we're good. So that's the transaction. So where it gets into a problem is when you get called upon the transaction. And I think that's when transactional relationships are a problem. That's when a relationship should not be as transactional as we make it, where we go, I did this for you. Why don't you do this for me? Well, wait a minute. I want you to do it for me because you wanted to do it for me. That's the difference. So I like the transaction. Not that I don't want
Sure.
that, but I don't want that conditional. And that's where that condition is where it becomes, or a quid pro quo. As soon as it becomes that, or outwardly spoken or verbal, now it becomes more like an expectation that I do that. And for some reason, as soon as it goes into that arena, we can get problems.
Sure.
Right? Because now you feel entitled to get it. Now you have an expectation that you're going to get it. But are all levels of entitlement bad? And are all levels of expectation bad? Not necessarily. No, because if I accept your level of expectation and your level of entitlement, and it still makes me feel good, I will accept it. I'm good with it. It's when you go outside those boundaries,
right,
where I don't feel a certain something, right? I'm going to call you out on it. And so I think that's where we get a little confusing. It's like we're okay with a little bit of it, but not a lot of it. We're okay with a little manipulation, but not when it's, hurting us. We're okay with a little bit of lie, but not when it's a lie. Like you can omit some shit to me. It's okay. I don't want to know. But if you lie, if I catch you in a lie, now I don't like lying. You know what I mean? Like I feel violated, like, right?
Sure.
I don't mind you taking a little bit from me because I was going to give it to you anyway. But when you directly steal from me and you didn't want me to know, now so there's levels of violation, and I think that's where it gets complicated, Trinity, with these transactions. It's not necessarily that that it's transactional in nature. It's the level of transaction without the permission to be a transaction. Does that make sense? Like I didn't give you permission to make it so transactional. Then I have a problem with it. But if I told you, Trinity, if you could do this for me, is that cool? If you do this today, I'm going to reciprocate. And if I don't reciprocate, that's on me. But I still want you to do it because you want to do it. And I still want to do it for you, whether you give me anything or not, because that feels better. Right. If I do it expecting something from you, it doesn't feel as good. But if I do something for you because I feel good doing it, but the only reason I'm in a relationship with you to be in the situation to do that is because you're the kind of person that gives back anyway. So that's what makes it a healthy relationship. I don't have to ask you for transaction. It just exists in the nature of math, right? Like good people together, this one's going to do it sometime, then this one's going to do it sometime. This one's going to do it sometime. That's just good people, right? I don't have to force it upon you or demand it of you or expect it of you, because then if I do that, then what I'm going into it saying it's lopsided. And if I go into a relationship thinking it's lopsided and feeling that it's lopsided, I'm only going to witness the lopsidedness. I'm not going to notice when it's here, and I'm not going to notice when it's this kind of imbalance. I'm only going to notice when it's lopsided to where I'm giving more. And that is problematic.
Well, so the two things that popped in my head when you were saying all that was, number one, we as human beings, we're messy. Right? Like I don't mean messy as in physical clutter. I mean messy emotionally, right? Like we're all walking into every situation with all of our baggage and every experience we've ever had, good or bad, and we're bringing it into this whether we want to or not. It doesn't matter. Like it's just part of who you are. Is a series of moments in your life that led up to this current moment,
right?
And it's impossible, no matter how well you know somebody or how long you've known somebody, it's impossible to really truly predict what their perspective is in any given moment, right? Now we might think that we can do that because we might be, we might get lucky sometimes and be dead on, but there was no scientific approach to that. You were just basing it upon what you know of that person, but what you didn't know is all the other thoughts that were going and all the other actions that led up to that moment, and so you just got lucky. But we don't think of it as lucky. We think of like, oh, well, we know them, and that's where the whole narrative thing comes in. When we start to come up with this narrative and we think that we're right. So like that was the first thing that popped in my head was messy. The other thing that popped in my head was I think part of the problem that I see happen with people is, and you kind of already touched on it earlier. I'm going to reiterate it, and that is not really kind of acknowledging the transaction, right? Like we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge the transaction and appreciate when the transaction's met, right? Like if I'm telling you I need something from you, like if I'm setting a boundary of saying, hey, this is what means something to me, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just letting you know this is what I expect, or this is what I view as a positive transaction for me.
Right.
And then at that point, it's up to you to do it or not to do it. If you decide to do it, it doesn't mean I told you to do it. It doesn't mean, no, it's just you need to know the parameters that you're playing
Right.
in, right? Like I need
Right.
to know the rules of the game. Like I need to know what I can and can't do, because each person's different. Like I use an example of my own house, right? Uh so my wife at one point, early on in our relationship, uh, uh neither one of us were feeling appreciated, right? But we had different ways of feeling appreciated. There's certain things that I would say or do that I would feel appreciated. I'm doing them for her, and she's like, "Well, you don't appreciate it." I was like, "What do you mean?" And I would list these things that I did that I would have felt were appreciation coming from somebody else to me, right? Like, this is how I interpret appreciation, so this is what I'm going to do. And obviously, hers was different. So, like, for instance, one of the things that I started doing early on, right, to help out, around the house or whatever, is I would clean the bathroom a little bit, right? I would go in and I would do that. For me as a dude, my perspective on the bathroom is just when it's dirty, clean it. and my definition of dirty is different than somebody else's definition of dirty, right? For some
Right.
people, dirty is like a homeless, like whoa, dude, like this is an abandoned house. You need to get in there and clean your bathroom.
That's
Other
fine.
people, it's like there's a drop on the sink and that's dirty, right? So it's like we have different levels of dirty. And so my level of dirty is different than her level of dirty. And so sometimes she would expect it to be cleaned a little bit earlier than what I thought, whatever it might be. So she mentioned one time that as an example, that was what would show appreciation. I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. So then I started to make sure I clean the bathroom every single day. Just, not major, just straighten up, make sure it looks good every day. And then I would, I mentioned one time that, hey, FYI, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I've been doing it. And she took that as I wanted this big celebration every time I did something. I was like, no, no. I mean, if you would like to, I'm not going to turn that down. However, I'm just trying to make sure there's an acknowledgement of, hey, I'm rising to what you wanted. You mentioned these things. You mentioned in the transaction you would appreciate this. So I'm showing you I'm doing this. And
Right.
because it wasn't acknowledged, I'm going to say something about that, because
Right. 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 Right.
what people don't realize is we collectively as human beings, we are so good when it comes to transactions. We are so good about complaining and pointing out every single time our transaction need is not met.
Right.
We're really good at that. Well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. We're so good at that. Now, where we fail a lot is pointing out the equal amount of times that their transaction is met.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you right now, for most of you, the transaction is met more than it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna argue for most people. Now, there's some really toxic relationships out there, I'm sure, but on the average everyday relationship, much like in life, more positive things happen throughout the day than negative. Right? There's 24 hours a day. You'd say it was a bad day. What really probably happens? You had like 5 or 6 moments that lasted all of 20 minutes, and you call it the whole bad day, even though it's 24 hours in the day. We just overlook, hey, you woke up today. You're still breathing at the moment. None of your family died today. Like, those types of things are all positives, but we just overlook them. We take them for granted. So the same thing in our transactional history. If you're going to be the individual that points out every single time your transactional needs are not met, you can do that. But my advice to you then is also do your best to acknowledge when those transactional needs are met, because you can't just criticize and be upset all the time. There has to be that balance, right? And I think that part of that comes in setting what your expectations are, making sure you understand, hey, these are what I've deemed as transactional needs or whatever it might be. You don't have to say it like that, obviously, but you know, there was so earlier you said uh I came to you when I first got married and asked some thoughts, right? Um, I don't think I remember the one that you said as much as I remember the one that stuck with me for all these years. And it sounded scary as hell, by the way. Like when you first said it to me, it was just like, whoa, I don't know if it goes against every fiber of my being and everything I've ever been taught and known and what most people think of. And that is have the fight,
Mm-hmm.
right? You said whatever it is, be honest about it and have the fight.
That's right.
Because it's better to get it ironed out now and make sure we're all on the same page moving forward than to have all this resentment build up and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes against what, like, as a dude, usually we're like, hey man, path of least resistance. I don't want any, I'll do what I got to do. I don't want any fights right now. I'm not trying to be nagged. I don't want to hear about it. So we are taught to avoid conflict as much as possible.
Right.
I know, ladies, you probably don't think that. You don't think that. No, we truly do not want conflict. We don't. We just might. Now, when conflict happens, typically we're willing to step up and have it, but we don't really seek it out. We want peace. We want, like, less is more kind of a thing, which is why we'll avoid it. We'll do the dumbest stuff in the world in an effort to avoid a fight or avoid conflict. So when you told me to have the fight, I was just like, the hell would I want to do that for? Like, no. However, over the years, I've realized that you're right. Have the fight, man. Like, I'm not saying you once. Let me define fight here. Disagreement, you know what I mean? Even a healthy argument, but keep it healthy. Don't make it toxic. Yeah. No physically hitting somebody. No manipulation. No, vulgar. Like, remember, that's your spouse, dude. Yeah. You chose. That's your teammate. You chose this person, right? Like, keep that in mind when you're talking to them.
Fight like you're going to still be there.
Yeah, right. But have the fight. But have the fight and understand that everything is a transaction. Right. You're giving and getting. Like, if you're expecting something out of this person, right, be honest to what that is. And then if the person's expecting out of you, be honest whether you can give it or not.
Yeah.
Right. Like, just like, look, man, have an adult, big boy, big girl conversation, or big boy, to whatever you're into, and just have that conversation and be like, look, this is what I'm expecting. This is what I'm willing to give, and if you're not, maybe that's not the person for you. Maybe this person just is not in a position in their life right now to give you the kind of fulfillment that you're looking for. And that's okay. They don't have to. But at least at that point, you'll know, and you can make the decision. Do you want to wait around and grow it, or do you not want to be involved in the first place?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Just have it. And look, I ain't going nowhere. Like, I've told her before. Like, you could say whatever. I ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna say whatever. You ain't going nowhere. We're gonna stay, and that's the best way to, like, let's hash it out. See, here's some of the difference. Though, there's one thing that you did say right now. You said, ladies, us guys, we don't really want conflict, and I'm gonna. I
don't think women do either, but
I'm gonna amend that a little bit. I think we like a little bit of conflict, but here's the difference. We like a little bit of conflict when we know that we're going to shake hands afterwards. Like, because when you're kids and you play, sports or whatever, no matter, I don't care if you stopped at Little League, you still did the same thing after you beat each other's butt. You shook hands afterwards. all my better friends as a young kid, we fought. We first fought, and then we were friends. So right. so conflict to a guy is a little bit different because we know we can hash it out and then respect each other for the comment and then shake hands like that. So
sure.
So I think at least I do. I come from the perspective that we can fight and then we'll get it afterwards.
Sure.
We can respect each other's battle. Like that real recognizing real kind of thing. Like it's okay to respect your strength and my strength, and let's feel it a little bit. Now, I do have some buyer's remorse issues. No, what I'm saying is, in that case, is like, if you're talking about these transactions, I've done transactions where later on I'm like, did I really make that transaction? Like, if you ever looked at your transaction history,
sure.
Like, and now let's put it financial, like, like financial, that's why I call it buyer's remorse. So if you made a transaction and then all of a sudden you get home and go like, why did I buy that? Did I really need to spend that? Because then now you see your account and go like, oh, I don't like the way it looks right now compared to the way it looked earlier today. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that we get in that same kind of buyer's remorse in relationships. Like, I feel like I gave too much. And then you start resenting the person for you giving too much. You felt you gave too much. Now, whether you really gave too much or not, that's a subjective opinion. That's anecdotal. It may or may not be true. But you're looking at it like a buyer's remorse kind of thing, and then it starts swirling in your mind. So all of a sudden, while you're doing that, the person does anything, and I mean anything, off the straight and narrow path that you now put them on. Problem. erupts.
Yes.
And I am guilty of that. I am guilty for buyer's remorse kind of emotional transactions where I feel like I'm going to give you an example. I fly back into town and I say, all right, there's no food made. Cool. Let's go out. I'll take you out. And she gets excited. Oh, we're going to go out, because she sees, I love taking pictures of what I eat out there. What you guys don't know if you follow me on social media, that really, I send those pictures to Dana to mess with her because I know how much she's a foodie. So I love messing with her. Go, look at what I'm eating just to mess with her. So that's why they even show up on my stuff. But anyway, so when I come home, I want to give her good food. So she's happy. If within the first hour of me taking her out after I've been gone and I'm really tired, I really just want to go home to bed, to be honest with you. But I take her out and we eat. If within that first hour after eating, she wants to argue about anything, I don't care about what it is. That's when I get like buyer's remorse, kind of feeling like, why did I just do this if I'm still going to be in some sort of then why did I just do that? I should have just got a burger on my way home and be like, fend for yourself. You know what I mean? And it's weird, it's immature, it's dumb, or whatever. But I have to acknowledge that I experience that. What I'm saying is that if the moment after I do something that I feel is a healthy transaction from my end, but I had an unhealthy expectation of what I wanted out of it, and that person does not meet that unhealthy expectation, damn, I'm in the resentment mode. And that's problematic. But at least I recognize it. And the important thing about recognizing something is not just to recognize it, but to recognize it with a plan to change it, not just recognize it. So then I put into action later dates as if I'm going to do this, I know I'm going to experience buyer's remorse. I know it. Don't set her up for failure because that's not fair. No. Don't set her up for failure. If you want to go out, Louie, then take her out with no expectation in mind. As a matter of fact, she can yell at you while you're eating your food. You should be okay with it. Just eat it. And then, God, I'm in such a healthier mindset when I tell myself, dude, don't put strings attached to this. If you do it because you want to do it, not because you're trying to pay her for her to be happy. You know what I mean? You're not guilty of anything. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't owe her anything. But, she's a big girl. If she wants to eat, she can order Uber Eats if she wants to. She can go out on her own to eat. But if you want to take her out somewhere, do it because you want to be with her. You want to spend time with her. You want to interact with her. You want to make her smile, and you want to smile with her. You want to have some fun and have a good conversation. That's the meaning. And so it's acknowledging that you have a deficit in your personality. And my deficit is sometimes I get too transactional when I'm tired and when I'm worn out. And so I have to realize that type of transaction when I'm tired and worn out is not the same transaction as when I'm feeling healthy and doing the right thing. And so again, we started off with the show saying all relationships have a transaction attached to it. That's not the negative. The negative is the unrealistic expectations or the unhealthy expectations, or how fast you want your transaction back. Look, guys, if you want someone to just smile at you and act like you're the strongest man on earth, the sexiest man on earth, the best man on earth, the funniest man on earth, go get a hooker and stay with a hooker, because pay for the hooker and deal with that. Women, if you want a man to always make you feel sexy and always make you feel happy and to listen to everything you want to say, then you go pay a gigolo. Just go pay a gigolo, and that's what he's going to do, because that is not who we are to each other.
No.
If that's what you want, those people exist. You could pay to play, or you could deal with the moodiness and the crazy. And I also told you that. Remember, I said
the messiness, and we're messy.
We're moody and crazy.
Yeah.
And one thing that I constantly tell Dana is, I love your crazy. I don't know why I love your crazy, but I do. It is as weird as that sounds, as bad as that can be. I love your crazy, and I love you for loving my crazy, because I'm not the healthiest individual either. But we're partners in this, and we're gonna get old and grumpy together, and it's gonna be really fun to do, And you better hope one day that I don't sling my diaper at you, because I will. Because dude, I swear, the day that I have a diaper, the day I wear a diaper, girl, once I'm wearing a diaper, I don't care how bad it is to throw crap at you. I'm doing it. I'm going to remove that, and I'm throwing it at everybody, the nurse that pisses me off, you that pisses me off, the whole world that pisses me off. Because at that point,
duly noted.
I've seen how elderly people get treated once they're wearing a diaper, and it's like you may say something to them, but you ain't doing that to them. You know what? You're wheeling them in a corner, you're sticking them in a room, and you leave them there, and that's what you do. So I'm good.
Well, I think you bring up, to me, I think, which is the overarching point in all this, right?
With the diaper part?
Exactly. Well, and it's also I think it's also the overarching point of most of our shows, to be honest with you. You know, we're not saying to strive for perfection, you know, or to be perfect and never do these things or whatever. We're not saying that, because that's impossible to do. What we are saying, though, is be aware of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, be aware. Like, I am fully aware that I can be fun, I can be amazing, I can be great, I can be all these things that I see myself as, right? My ego looks at me and paints this picture of who I want to be in life, and I can rise to that bar, right? But I can also be really petty and immature and angry, and you know, I can be these things, right? We all can, and that's okay, right? Like, it's not okay to behave that way constantly and expect other people to put up with it,
right?
But it's okay to have your moments, right? But acknowledge it for what it is. It was an unskillful moment,
right?
You were kind of being bratty right then. You messed up, right? And so, number one, acknowledge it. Number two, don't expect the other person to like be grateful for that. Like, you know, that's the other thing, is it's okay to apologize. That's part of the transaction too, right? Is that, you know, you are expecting them to put up with your bad, moody days. Well, they're expecting some acknowledgement for that. So, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. It was out of line. I was just having a bad day, whatever. There's nothing wrong with just owning your stuff, guys. Yeah. Right? That's part of the transaction as well. So I think that's the underlying thing that we're getting at with most of our shows, is we're trying to bring attention to the realities of life, but so many people bury their heads in the sands. So many people react to things and have no clue why they did that.
Right.
You know, and that's why in at least Buddhism, for instance, the word that they put onto that is the feeling tone, right? The feeling tone of a situation, not the specific feeling per se, but the feeling tone, meaning, you know, you have an interaction with a human being, right? And they say or do something, and you're going to respond to what they said. Well, your response is coming from whatever feeling tone that generated in you. So if they said something and you loved it, and it filled your cup, man, well, then your feeling tone is a very positive, hey, I like that. So whatever your response is going to come from a place of, I'm happy, I'm connected to you, I feel good, and I'm going to repay that. Well, if they said something that gave you a negative feeling tone, that you took it or felt that it was an insult or it was put down or whatever, then your feeling tone is, I'm pretty fucking pissed right now. Yep. I don't like that. You touched my button. So now I'm going to respond as if somebody touched my button. And it's going to be mean. It's going to be angry. It's going to be vulgar. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be all that list of things that we're not proud of. You know, and you have to acknowledge those things. No matter how much you think you don't do these things, you do. Right? If you're human and you're breathing, you trust me, you're doing these things, both good and not so good. And so the key, though, is owning it. The key is acknowledging and realizing, you know what, this is what I did. Coming clean and doing your best to build on that and build those skills to try not to do it the next time, or is not as bad, not to that degree, whatever it might be. You know, that's I think that's the overarching thing that we're trying to get across today.
Right. But there's people out there that'll say, yeah, but I'm always the one doing that, and the other person never is acknowledging it. No. You still acknowledge it because it's the right thing to do.
Always and never.
Do it because it's the right thing to do. Don't have a scorecard attached to it. You know, the other thing, you touched on something. So I'm going to put it in a metaphor kind of thing. All right. What about like designated driver? Like, you both can't be drunk at the same time. And we get that, right? Like, if you got to drive home, one of you got to drive. So in an argument, you can't both be drunk with anger. Yeah. One of you got to be sober enough to let the other person, right? If they're in there crazy, let them be. It's your day to be drunk, then. I'm going to be the designated driver. You go ahead and yell at me, curse at me, say whatever you got to say. I'm going to be the designated driver. Let me drink my water. Go ahead. Let the person go off. If you love this person, you got to let them have their drunk moment And by drunk, I don't really mean alcohol. You know what I'm saying, right?
Sure.
You got to let them have their drunk moment. But if you're both drunk at the same time, oh hell no.
Yeah, it's about to get toxic.
It gets ugly. You're gonna wreck the car. You're not even gonna remember where the car is. And I know some of you think you can call Uber, but there's no Uber in a relationship. An Uber in a relationship is a third party. You don't want a third party involved in your relationship because there's a third party gets involved.
Doesn't end well usually.
No. You might think you wanted it at the moment, but let me tell you something. When you wake up in the morning, it says, "You like that Uber driver just a little bit too much yesterday." You know. you're not going to like that, so don't do that. So what you want to do is you want to be the designated driver when your partner's drunk, and when you're drunk, they need to be the designated driver. That's how you argue in a healthy way. That's a true transactional relationship, when you allow the other person to be wherever they're at on their level, and you balance it out. Remember, the whole world really wants us to balance out. Your body always is calibrating and trying to balance out. Everything out there is always trying to balance itself out. So in a relationship, if your partner is here, you can't stay here. This is not balance. You got to go here. You got to get a little calmer. You got to get a little lower in your tone. You got to a little bit get quieter. And then they come down, and you can come back to normal. And then, you just keep on recalibrating. And you're trying to find balance in nature. That's true spirituality. That person gets loud, you get quieter. That person gets a little bit aggressive, you get a little bit more loving and calm. That may work for you. That's my 2 cents on that whole transaction thing. You got to understand the transaction you're being given at the moment. At the moment, they're throwing dollar bills. Put them in your pocket. If they're throwing dollar bills and you're throwing dollar bills, you guys are going to overspend, and you're going to be real pissed the next day because you're both going to be broke. You can't do it. Just put them in your pocket. Relax.
You heard it here first, kids.
Yeah.
Strip Club 101.
Most things you need to learn in life, you've learned at the strip club.
Wow.
That's the next book.
Yeah, right.
Wasn't it like all the things I learned in kindergarten?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but the follow-up to that is all the things you really need to know about life. You can learn at a strip club. Don't touch. Don't touch.
Don't overspend. Not that into you.
She's not. Yeah. It's transactional. It's very transactional.
Oh man.
And your woman will always get more attention. Be okay with that.
You're dead on too. It's like an actual technique, if you will, right? Like if you're like, for instance, with your kids and stuff, if they're being loud, obnoxious, and crazy, running around, trying to yell over the top of them, all that means is they get louder. Like you gotta, like, whenever somebody's arguing with you, it's an old trick in the thing is when they're getting loud, you bring it down, and then they will start to come down to your level. You don't come up to their level, then you're going to just keep one up at one another.
That's right. Yes, Marissa, I did show Dana the pictures of the pizza. I just answering a Facebook Live comment that Marissa put.
Does Dana even eat pizza? She doesn't seem like she would eat pizza, or it's got to be like some like high class pizza joint where they charge you like $40 for the same pizza.
Dana is so bougie when it comes to food. Yeah, food is the only thing she's bougie at. Food is one thing. Don't go cheap with Dana with food now. Now, the only time Dana will eat a hamburger is if we're driving home at 1 a.m. in the morning. She'll go like, "I want a burger."
Unless it's a $12 burger.
No, when I'm the designated driver, she'll go, "I want a burger." I'm like, "Baby, we're going straight home. I'm tired. We've been out." She goes, "You're not gonna give me a burger? I just want a burger. Why can't you just get me a hamburger?" Dana will fight for a $2 burger at 1 a.m. in the morning like you've never seen him fight.
Well, I can see that.
So that's the only time Dana will be okay with a little $2 burger. Other than that,
it's awesome.
Remember, Dana thinks that Olive Garden is fast food. Remember
that. Oh, I know. We've had that conversation.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, you got any final thoughts on transactional relationships before we cut this short?
No, I'm good. I feel like I feel like Johnny Cash. I said what I had to say, and I'm putting back on my Dahmers back on, and I'll let you do your Dharma guy closure.
Right on. Well, first off, thanks for everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. Can't do it without you. Make sure you follow us on social media. He is the Dope Doctor. I am the Dharma guy. We collectively are Dope and Dharma. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live under Dope and Dharma, so you can catch any of our live shows. And if you want to listen at your leisure, you can do so on any of the major podcasting platforms. Believe it or not, it really does. These algorithms are a pain in the butt, man. But if you guys like what we have to say, please like, share, comment, things of that nature, because it really does help get us the exposure. So, transactional relationships. So, don't kid yourself, right? Don't kid yourself. Don't look down your nose at the label of transactional relationship because you feel somehow like that's unworthy of what you have. Um, that's your ego talking. In all reality, everything is transactional. No matter what relationship you're involved in, you're getting something and you're giving that other person something. Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be interacting, right? We don't just randomly do those things. We want something, whether it be something as simple as validation, whether it be companionship, whether it be sex. No, it doesn't matter what it is. We're wanting something from this situation. But keep in mind, in order to get what it is that you want, you kind of have to give what they want as well. It can't just be one sided for too long. At some point, if it stays one sided and you don't try to reciprocate that, at some point the person's going to get tired and not going to be there anymore. That's where resentment starts to boil, things of that nature. So, I encourage you to look at your own life, look at your own relationships, and figure out where the transactions are taking place, and are you doing your best to pay out as much as you're getting in. I think if you do that on a continuous basis, you'll be in a pretty happy, healthy relationship. So that's all I got for that. Are we going to be on? What is today? Today's Tuesday. Are we going to be on later on this week for We the Middle or something?
Well, hopefully. We didn't do a couch live on Monday. I forget, to be honest with you, I forgot all about. I couldn't believe I wasn't going anywhere. It was like weird because I'd been traveling every Sunday or Monday, and this time I'm flying out tomorrow.
Sorry, he
Actually.
ran our show last week. So.
Oh, he did. All right, cool. All right. So, yeah, I do. I fly back Friday. So as long as we can find a time Friday when I fly back.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first. We're going to do our best to do a We the Middle. That's our Friday show that we try to talk politics and sports, that kind of stuff. So, by all means, set your little alert notification so you can get notified when we go live, and should be a good one. We haven't had one of those in a while. So, all right, guys. That's all I got. So now that you know better, do better. Peace.